1031 exchanges are sexy again, which is great for our industry. Hello, I'm Cassie Panalakis, and I'm the National Sales Manager for Old Republic Exchange Company. Old Republic Exchange is what is referred to as a qualified intermediary, or QI. We service all 50 states, Guam, and the Virgin Islands in regards to 1031 exchange. Many people hear the term 1031 exchange, and they think they should know what it is, but they really don't. So I'm here to explain it for you. First of all, the term 1031 exchange comes from Section 1031 of the tax code. That's why it's called a 1031 exchange. We will show the exact technical IRS code definition of Section 1031 on the screen, but generally speaking, a 1031 exchange allows someone selling property held for investment to defer paying capital gains tax on any gain as long as they purchase another investment property within 180 days. That's all a 1031 exchange is. It's probably best to illustrate the difference. When you have a primary residence, in other words, the house you live in, and you go to sell it, say you bought it 5 years ago for $100,000 and you're selling it today for $175,000, giving you a $75,000 profit. Now, profit doesn't always equal gain. That's something your tax advisor should determine, but it's usually a good indicator of gain. So for our scenario, we'll say you have $75,000 worth of gain. Because it's your primary residence, you do not have to pay tax on that $75,000 in capital gain. Therefore, you do not need a 1031 exchange. The reason you don't have to pay tax on your primary residence is because in most cases, your primary residence receives an exemption which allows you to exclude gain from capital gains tax. The IRS will give you that exclusion for any gain you make on your primary residence up to $250,000 if you're single and up to $500,000 in profit if you're married and filed jointly. Now let's take that same scenario with a piece of investment property you own. It could be residential or commercial, doesn't matter. It could be a strip mall, a hotel, a multi-use project, a multi-family building, or your own condo or lake house that you just hold for investment or perhaps rent out. Let's say you bought that piece of property 5 years ago for $100,000 and you're selling it today for $175,000. Now, determining taxable gain is complicated and it's best to talk to your tax professional. But generally speaking, that $75,000 is going to be taxed at $1 because it is an investment property. It is no longer a primary residence. So you do not get the primary residence exclusion. You're going to have to pay capital gains tax on that $75,000 gain unless you do a 1031 exchange. If you do a 1031 exchange, it will allow you to defer that capital gains tax. The biggest benefit of doing a 1031 exchange, obviously, is that it allows you to defer your capital gains tax. Capital gains tax is made up of 3 things. First, you have your federal tax rate. It's usually between 15% and 20% depending on your income tax bracket. Second, there's the state tax. Depending on the state you live in, you can pay another 5 to 10% in capital gains tax. And third, there's the Affordable Care Act tax, which adds another 3.8% in tax. When you add that all together, you may pay anywhere between 20 and 35% total capital gains tax on an investment piece of property. That can be significant. In other words, if you made $100,000 in capital gain, you may have to pay between $25,000 and $35,000 of that to the government. When you do a 1031 exchange, the tax you would have paid on that investment property is now going to your next property, which usually allows you to buy a bigger, more expensive piece of property. The process is easy. The IRS requires that any 1031 exchange uses a qualified intermediary, or QI. That's what we are at Old Republic Exchange. We are a subsidiary of Old Republic International, whose sole function is to facilitate 1031 exchanges. That's all we do. Here's the process. Have the seller contact us, and we will set everything in motion. We contact the closing agent that is going to close the property that the exchanger is selling. We send that closing agent the proper exchange documents and instructions to execute. The closer will go through a regular closing like they would any other time. But instead of dispersing the money to the seller, the closer is going to send us those proceeds. Therefore, the seller never receives or constructively receives the proceeds. We hold that money up to 180 days. Then the seller has 45 days to identify properties to purchase and 180 days to purchase investment properties identified. They then make us aware when they've entered into a purchase contract. We then provide that closing agent with exchange documents for the purchase. On the date of that closing, we send the money to the closer. So through the process, the seller, who then turns into the buyer, never touches a single dime of their money. Because they don't touch the money, they can defer paying capital gains tax. That's all it is. It's that simple, and we take care of all the documentation, monitoring the exchange timelines, and holding the money for that 180-day span. Well, you really have to be careful in selecting a qualified intermediary. First of all, it's an unregulated industry. It's not like the title industry that's regulated. People don't realize that. Anybody can hang a shingle and be a QI. My mother can hang a shingle and be a QI, and trust me, nobody wants that. So you want to choose someone who has experience, security, and strength. Old Republic Exchange meets that criteria. We have facilitated hundreds of thousands of exchanges since 1993. And we're proud to say that none of our exchanges have been deemed to be invalid at audit because of something we've done. My contact information is provided, as well as my team's contact information. Please contact one of us either by email or by telephone. Or have your client contact us. We can direct them even if they're not sure they have a tangible exchange. So please feel free to disseminate our information to your clients, as we are happy to assist you at any time.